The Sky This Month with your host, Dave McDonald.
Welcome to The Sky This Month. I'm your host, Dave McDonald, and this is August 2025, and this is a great month, as all months are, for celestial events. And one of the key events happening August, you may know and remember, is the Perseid meteor shower. A little later in the show, we'll talk a little more detail about the Perseid meteor shower. The night of August 12th to the early morning of August 13th is the peak time, and we'll show you where to find that. Also, we'll talk about the summer triangle and some neat constellations that you can find in the night sky. One of the things that I want to talk about in a little bit of depth are telescopes, and specifically a telescope that you probably have access to at your local library. And to help me talk about that program, actually he's going to do most of the talking, I have the illustrious Marc Stowbridge here, who is a member of the New Hampshire Astronomical Society. And this library telescope program has really taken wings, so to speak, and has become a very, very popular program. And we're going to talk a little bit, actually a lot of it, about that. Marc, welcome to the program.
Happy to be back.
It's great to have you back. And you may remember a couple years ago, Marc talked about binoculars and such. And so we thought we'd move up in the world to telescopes. And if you are viewing this from a state other than New Hampshire, and we know that there is just about a broadcast in almost every state in the country, but this program is nationwide, not just in New Hampshire. We're going to focus a little on New Hampshire. See what I did there? Focus. We're going to focus.
Yes, I saw that.
And such. So again, welcome to the show, Marc. And so tell us just an overview. We'll get into some details and some specifics in a moment, but just give us an overview. What is the Library Telescope Program?
Well, about 16 years ago, the New Hampshire Astronomical Society had a sky watch at a library, and the library very uncharacteristically donated $200 to us, which was delightful. But being an educational nonprofit, much talk was made as to what to do with it. I thought, being pretty good at spending other people's money, that we could perhaps give them a telescope, seeing how they like astronomy so much. But that's easier said than done, and because you don't want to give somebody a telescope that's going to be frustrating or breakable or not particularly useful. So I went through pretty much all the telescopes that were available at the time and came up with the Orion Starblast 4.5-inch tabletop model, which is what this thing is. We'll talk some more about what's going on with that currently, because Orion is, you may know, no longer with us. But we've got good news in that regard. But giving somebody even a telescope like this, where you don't have counterweights or spindly tripods, we had to fiddle with it to keep it from being fiddled with.
Right. And so in order to help it be, so to speak, fiddle-proof as much as you can, because again, when somebody goes to a library to take something out, and it's, for a family, and you can take it out for a period of time, there may be little kids, teenagers are fine, but you don't know who's going to be messing with what. So, and then the telescope gets brought back to the library, and you want it to be in good shape for the next person or family that takes it out. So what kinds of modifications do you make to help them be fiddle-proof, but yet it's a very usable and awesome instrument?
Well, first thing was we learned by experience. There are some things that I could anticipate, and Well, one thing I didn't anticipate was how popular the whole thing turned out to be. I thought originally if we were able to place 3 or 4 telescopes a year, I would be thrilled.
Yeah.
There are now, I think 1,170 odd libraries involved around the world, from London and Amsterdam.
So, Mark, you're telling me that this is more than New Hampshire, and I already mentioned that it is national in the United States. This is an international program?
We're in at least 9 countries other
That
than the
qualifies
United
as
States.
International.
Yeah, well, from I think Israel, but the one that I know about is probably the Netherlands, and almost antipodal from that is New Zealand and South Korea.
Wow.
And from Canada, Calgary is probably the northernmost, down to Chile. And it's just been delightful.
That's a phenomenal program, and that's really great. So,
But as far as the defiddling things,
yeah,
this is one of the original telescopes. I don't remember when this was placed in one of our local libraries. By the way, when I spoke with you the other day about doing this, I promised I would try to bring a telescope. Very delightfully, it was hard to do because all the libraries in the neighborhood had them checked out.
that's awesome.
Like I checked 4 or 5 libraries that are, contiguous to my hometown. But this one was in. So one of the big things at the back end of a Newtonian reflector, there are usually 6 shiny little screws that just beg to be fiddled with. 3 of them move the mirror around and 3 of them lock it in place. But this mirror is small, and the springs that it's in there spring-loaded. They're very stiff, so you really didn't need the locking ones. So I got rid of those right away. But then I went to my town library where I was testing out the theory and found the primary mirror sort of flopping around. So that was a bit off-putting. So we switched it so that there are now these 3 locking nuts, like you have in airplanes.
And then the people who take out the telescope don't have to worry anything about that because it's all set in place?
My town telescope has actually been swapped out a few times. The base is original,
Yeah.
but every time I modified something, I would take the optical tube home and swap it out. So the one that is in my town next to ours has been in constant service for 15, 16 years, and I've had to recollimate it once.
Now, what is collimate? If you're recollimating,
Well-
it must be collimated. So what is the basic idea behind that?
Light goes in here,
So light goes in
in
here.
this end.
Okay, so we can show the people. So that's the end there.
There's a mirror in there somewhere.
Yeah, so there's a mirror in there. Okay.
There it is.
Oh, we kind of had that little reflection.
Yep.
Right there. See the reflect, and this is a mirror. So this is a reflecting telescope
Yes.
as opposed to a refractor. So a
Or-
reflecting telescope, the primary or the objective is a mirror, which this is. And you said it's 4.5 inch?
Yes. Just a
Okay.
nice size.
Yeah.
Light goes in here, hits this parabolic mirror. It comes together here behind this little plasticky thing to a diagonal mirror that bounces it out to the eyepiece.
Okay.
Collimation is when you, what I do is I put a laser in here and I bounce the laser around, and when the laser goes in, hits the mirror, goes back to the secondary, and goes in the hole it came out of in the laser, then it's pretty much perfect.
Another word perhaps for collimation is it's in alignment, so to speak.
Alignment.
Yeah.
I tend to talk geek when I'm talking about telescopes.
That's awesome.
And the other thing for aligning, most telescopes have a finder scope of some sort.
Yeah.
And this is a red dot. People think it's a laser. It's not. It's just this tiny little LED that shines on a little screen here. And when you turn it on, the light goes on. There's a little red dot on that screen. And when you align that with, say, the moon, and you look through the eyepiece, the moon ought to be there, and making sure that that's actually aligned with the rest of the telescope as part of that process. But with these collimation screws in the back, as I said, these things are handled roughly all the time, and it never goes out. If you have a big telescope with a big heavy mirror, you might have to collimate it every time you take it out. The other thing that we found, the telescope comes with two eyepieces, and people will swap them out. Folks always, mostly, go for the highest power possible, which is not so good.
Right.
It's dimmer and it's really hard to focus.
And on that note, if I could just mention a story related to that, a friend of mine bought a telescope and he asked me what, and I suggested, again, for him, his home, an 8-inch Orion.
Yes.
But he went crazy with the power. He got the highest power eyepiece. He got a 3x Barlow.
Good Lord.
Because he wanted Saturn to, fill the whole eyepiece. And then he's looking through it and he's ever so disappointed at it's fuzzy and, as you mentioned, it's faint. And I tried to explain to him that, you want to start, bigger is not always better, or more power is not always better. And so like what you're saying, you chose a couple of eyepieces that were going to be good for the average person who takes it home to enjoy it in their backyard.
But what we did, and I use the term we, because the club was quite involved with all this. This wasn't all me by any means.
What club is that?
Oh, the New Hampshire Astronomical Society.
Yes.
We put in a Celestron zoom eyepiece that goes from 8 millimeters to 24. 24 is low power, and there's actually a little chart here, because people are always saying, what power is your telescope? Right. Well, with that little chart, I can just sort of look over and say, well, at the moment, it's 56 power, as if I just knew that off the top of my head.
Right.
It also gives you the field of view, and at highest power, you'll get a full moon in there. At lower power, you get about 4 full moons.
And so one object that is very popular, which is not so much available in the summertime, but like the Pleiades star cluster, for example.
And the Andromeda Galaxy, through most skinny little refractors, you'll see the central core, which is just sort of a fuzzy blob. Through this, you'll see the whole thing, because it's about 5 full moons across,
right,
and about 2 or 3 full moons that way. And the Pleiades, instead of seeing 1 or 2 through your usual refractor, with this, you'll see all 7 sisters, their aunts, their uncles, stars that live down the street.
And the cousins.
Yep, you see everything. It's almost that you don't need a finder scope, but the moon is only half a degree, so in just one arc from one horizon to another, there's 360 of them. So being able to point this like a gun sight just makes life easier. By the way, the eyepieces that your friend got, like a 3 or a 4 millimeter,
Yeah.
those have to be surgically implanted like a jeweler's loop to see anything. With this, the ocular lens is about the size of a quarter. But even with that, people will look through it and get into this head orbit trying to get right to the point where the light comes together.
And so you can see here, I think the other camera,
Yep.
that it has the, I don't know, what would you call it, an eye cushion?
Well, there's an eye cup, but
Right.
I call this an oculus just because it sounds fancy. An oculus is just a hole in a roof that light goes
Right.
through. So I cut this out of rubberized floor tiles, and it does not restrict your view because by this point the light is coming together, about 5 millimeters in diameter. So this doesn't do anything except get somebody's eyes centered, and that just fits there. Other things.
Well, let me ask you, like, from what you've heard from the many libraries and people who have used this, what would you say is one of the wow factors that libraries might report to you? Like, why do libraries think it's a worthwhile program to be involved in?
Oh, we've done some studies on that.
Yeah.
And it increases people coming in. There is just a wow factor. This doesn't look like a toy, and it isn't a toy, but well, I refer to them as my toys. But
Yeah, I understand.
People respect it. We've had things that, as time's gone on, where if somebody is cranking out the eyepiece and they get to the end and they keep going, they can strip the threads there, but we figured out a way to make that not happen. We put a tiny little screw in there and the gears hit that. The finder scope now runs on AA batteries, or with the newer version, the CR2032 nickel-sized batteries fit very easily in the top instead of underneath. That's just annoying. And this is glued in place with double-sided tape. As we've experienced problems, we fixed them, or at least made it much harder for them to be fiddled with. And just about everything is connected by strings. So when you take something off, and by the way, looking at a full moon, which everybody loves to do, is just glary and nasty, and everything is washed out. So this is an aperture stop. This allows you to dim the view. The view is still the same size, and all that is just not as glaringly bright. And
Right,
it's
so even though the hole is smaller than the whole thing, you see the whole moon. It's not like you just see a part of the moon. So the effect is it dims the amount of light it's going to hit your eyes.
One of the funny things is that if you put your hand over the aperture here, the opening, you won't see fingers. It'll just be dimmer.
Yeah.
And so if you have a telescope and you're looking at something that's just annoyingly bright, you can just put your hand like that, and the light goes between your fingers and gets reconnected. It's just magic.
That's awesome.
Can I talk about the case here, the belt case?
Yeah, no, that's great.
One of the things that is important when you're using a telescope is knowing what to look for. So we have this instruction manual, which replaces the oversized printed one, which
Right.
does not do well in dew. And
That's laminated.
this is all laminated, so it's waterproof. Tells you everything you need to know. It says a number of times, like 3 or 4 times, do not look at the sun. It's one of the few really bad things you can do to yourself twice. So, and we, for the most part, tried to make it specific to the library, just to make sure that the patrons know that this is their telescope and it's not just one floating around. As far as what to look at, we have either the National Audubon Society Pocket Guide to the Constellations, and this is getting hard to find, so we have another one that we're currently using. And we put little tabs on it, so you start with the winter sky looking northwest, and in the middle of the page there's Cassiopeia and Andromeda, and you go to the second tab and there's Andromeda and the Andromeda Galaxy in detail. So this will help you figure out what to look at. As I say to people, to the annoyance of some folks, that stars are stars. There's variable stars and there's double stars. But things like the Messier objects, the Caldwell objects, those are delightful things to look at. Nebula, galaxies, star clusters, one of my favorites. And that will tell you where they are, so you know where to look.
So it's kind of everything you need in one package that you can take out at your local library, and it's just like taking out a book. There's no charge.
And we even have a headlamp, because what kid in particular, or people acting like kids, doesn't like a headlamp?
Exactly.
And this starts off red because that will not ruin your night vision as much as a bright white light will. So we've tried to anticipate needs, problems, and so far, like the instruction manual, I think went through about 12 editions before I finally settled on one that I liked, and different clubs throughout the country and world, because they're now in different languages, they modify them to meet their own specific needs.
That's great. And one of the things that is awesome is, again, your library around the country, around the world. Mark mentioned 9 countries have this program, and it all started right here in New Hampshire, and the father of the Library Telescope program right here, Marc Stowbridge. Hey, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, you're very welcome.
On the show and bringing the scope and telling us all about it. So you get to your local library and you ask for, do you have a library telescope? And if for whatever reason your local library doesn't have one, then who should they call, Mark, if in fact there's a library looking for a library telescope?
I would suggest going to librarytelescope.org. That's all one word.
Right, librarytelescope.org.
That's out of St. Louis, and it has information on what's up tonight, sky maps, how to use these things.
But where do they call to get a telescope if they don't have one?
Well, as I said, Orion is no longer with us, and now...
Well, I mean, do they call you to
oh
get
gosh,
a library
no.
telescope? Who do they...
Please don't. If they get in touch with the librarytelescope.org,
Okay.
And that will connect them up with High Point Scientific,
Okay.
which has now contracted with us to modify these telescopes right out of the box.
Nice.
And they have They've made a new version of this, which is pretty much similar to the original specifications, and they are keeping the prices as low as possible, and they're a delight to work with.
Perfect.
So High Point Scientific.
Okay, High Point Scientific, go to librarytelescope.org and you'll get the information to get one to your library if you don't already have one. Well, again, Mark, thanks so much. And I know I already shook your hand, but thank you again. So let's take a peek at what you can see in your backyard. We have the Perseid meteor shower coming up and some neat constellations, including the Summer Triangle. Let's take a look. Well, I hope you enjoyed that chat with Marc Stowbridge and the Library Telescope program. Get to your local library and ask to take the telescope out, or better still, consider buying a telescope for yourself. And mentioning that, just so you know, the first Friday night of every month, we have the Superstellar Friday program at the McAuliffe Shepherd Discovery Center in Concord, New Hampshire. And one of the features is every first Friday we have a bunch of telescopes there. People from the New Hampshire Astronomical Society are there with reflectors, refractors, Schmidt-Cassegrams. We also have an Ask the Astronomer person there to answer your questions about telescopes, about the night sky. So in addition to the program, go to starhop, starhop.com, and see what the program is for the month. And it's the first Friday night of every month. And then bonus, you have a planetarium show, and bonus, you have telescopes outside looking at whatever's available, and an astronomer standing by to ask questions. And the telescopes and Ask the Astronomer, there's no charge for that. So awesome. So right now, I just want to mention a little bit about the Perseid meteor shower. You want to write down August 12th, late night, August 12th, early morning before the sun comes up, August 13th. That's the peak. Now, you can go out, check out the weather. If it's, predicted to be cloudy, 12th and 13th, you can go out the 9th, the 10th, the 11th is fine. 14th, 15th, 16th is fine, but the peak is going to be around the late night of August 12th, early morning of August 13th. And there's a moon that's a few days after full to contend with, so some of the dimmer meteors you may not get to see. But later I'm going to show you again in the night sky where this is going to be. But this is the constellation of Perseus, thus the name the Perseid meteor shower. And this is northeast, and this is about midnight or so, 11 o'clock to midnight. You're looking northeast, just rising over the horizon is the constellation of Perseus. And where Perseus's head is where the radiant is. And so if you trace a meteor backwards to this point, it's a Perseid. If something goes streaking across the sky and when you trace it backwards, it doesn't end up in Perseus, then it's a stray meteor, which can happen any night. And you can see that it's close to Cassiopeia, and one of the neat, I would say, constellations that looks exactly like it's supposed to, Triangulum, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit as well. So in addition to the meteor shower, we got some other constellations to show you. So next slide, and we'll take a peek. Now, this is just stars we're looking at here, and you can see the brightest star that you're going to see in an overhead position. This is the night of August 12th, but this will be a similar the week before, the week after, the bright star Vega. And then you have Deneb, which is at the top of the Northern Cross. You can see the Northern Cross going this way. And then we have Altair, which is in the constellation of Aquila, the eagle. So next slide, we'll connect the dots, so to speak. And you can see the lines now, and it now looks a lot more like a Northern Cross. And you can see Vega, and you can kind of make out what you could put some strings there to make a lyre or like a harp instrument. And then Altair represents the eye of the eagle. So easy to find the summer triangle. You got 3 bright stars from different constellations, and this is what we call an asterism. An asterism is a familiar shape made up of stars that may be from the same, or in this case, different constellations. So next slide, put up some of the artwork, and you can see that that Northern Cross also doubles as a swan, where Deneb is the tail of the swan, and that's what Deneb means. And then we have the swan, the harp or the lyre with Vega, the bright star that's in the overhead position, and the eye of the eagle, Aquila the eagle. Now, notice this line, if you go from Altair up to Deneb, okay, it goes through a constellation, Sagitta the arrow, and then if you go a little to the left, as you're looking up at the sky and you go towards the left, it looks kind of like a kite, and that's Delphinus the dolphin. I'd say that's one of my favorite constellations. It's a delicate little constellation. Very few people know about it, but you can look at Delphinus the dolphin. And so this is around 11 o'clock, and this happens to be the evening of the 12th, but as I said, you can find the summer triangle, a couple weeks before. Throughout the entire month of August, the summer triangle will be available, so go out and have a look. But getting back to the meteor shower, next slide, now we are looking to the northeast, and the northeast, the way I try to find Perseus, and this is again about 11 o'clock, August 12th, and it's rising in the northeast, so you wait a little later, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, it'll be higher above the horizon, and maybe you have a low enough horizon to see it at 11 o'clock. But to me, it kind of looks like a wishbone, and that's kind of how I look to find it. You see here, kind of looks like a wishbone that you might get off a turkey, and again, it's that top part where is the radiant of the Perseid meteor shower. And remember, late night, August 12th, early morning, August 13th. Get some hot chocolate, some donuts. Don't go out in your driveway and stand and look up. Get a lawn chair, make yourself comfortable, sleeping bag, so you can keep warm, because it gets cold after midnight, right, at night. Some donuts, some coffee, some hot chocolate, some snacks, and maybe a red light, as Mark told us. A red light will help you to be able to jot things down if you want to without ruining your night vision. So the Perseid meteor shower is waiting for us as always, and that is because Earth is going through the dust trail of a comet called Swift-Tuttle. And Swift-Tuttle is a comet that leaves a dust trail, and that debris orbits the sun, Earth orbits, and every year in the middle of August, Earth goes through that debris trail, and we have the meteor shower. And those meteors are about the size of a grain of sand. They're not big. Every now and again, you might see a big bolt like you saw in the image behind us as we started the show. But meteors in general, they're about the size of a grain of sand. And then the next slide that we'll conclude with is just, again, showing you Perseus, the hero, right? He chopped off the head of the Medusa, the Gorgon, one of the Gorgons. And Cassiopeia, that W shape. Underneath that, as you look northeast, you'll find that wishbone shape, and the Perseid radiant is found there. So I hope that you have a good time going out and enjoying the summer triangle. Try to find that little constellation, Delphinus, the dolphin. Sagitta is the arrow, and have a good time, because the night sky is the greatest show on Earth, and it's free. It's in your backyard. And don't forget to keep looking up.